now. So let me offer a comment quickly on the questions series, which I've had the privilege of being a part of with Issues, etc. Then we'll hop into this topic. So I pitched this idea to Issues here a couple of years ago, and I'll share where it came from. And they thought about it, and they came back, and I said to them, you should have somebody do this. I think the questions these kids are asking are questions that not just kids are asking, but adults are asking. And so they thought about it, and they came back and said, well, we want you to do the series. I said, perfect, I'll do the series. That'd be great. So I teach confirmation, no surprise as a pastor. About 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to start something new. I handed out learning journals. Very simple, they're just blank notebooks. And the kids were required to write one question or one thing they learned. That was it. And I would reply to it during the week and hand it back out the next week. And in my ignorance, I thought they'd be asking questions from class. That's not what they ask questions about. Sometimes about class, sometimes about something that happened in school, sometimes about something they saw on TV or online, all different things under the sun. And they kept asking questions. And some kids started asking 2 questions, and some were asking 4 questions. Some kids asked 10 questions a week. Well, okay, I have 30 kids in my confirmation class. Do the math. And I started, at first I was handwriting the answers, and my hand was just cramping up, so I couldn't do it. And so I started typing the answers, and then I save it in a Word doc, and occasionally they'll ask the same question, so I can just copy and paste. That saved me lots of time. And then I can just print it out and literally just tape it in their notebook. So I've been doing this for about 5 or 6 years with the learning journals, and this year that Word document crossed 1,000 pages. They ask a lot of questions, and really good questions. And that's what the basis of the series is. And I think you all got a copy of the book that Issues had me write, and it took 20 of those questions in the book. And so you read the book, you'll get the idea. I pray you use that as a resource, and it's helpful for you. And I think later tomorrow, we're going to have some kind of format like that where you're going to get to kind of ask questions, because I know men have questions as well. So, but let's get to this presentation. I should just offer some brief introduction of myself beyond I'm a doofus. So that's a great start, but I really can't top it. But so my wife and I have been married. This summer will be 25 years. So we got married the summer after camp. We have 6 children. 5 of them are boys. I tell people, and those of you who have lots of boys, you know this, everything we own is... You got it. That's right. Everything we own is broken. Our oldest will be 21. He's a junior at Concordia, Wisconsin. The next one's getting ready to graduate, and the youngest will be 9. So that's our range. I serve as a pastor in western Iowa, and I've been in Iowa for 21 years, and my current congregation for 15. That's a very active congregation. I'd be happy to talk to you about that, and especially about our unique partnership, which is one of the key models that was used in our Synod's partnership project. If you don't know about that, you can go on our Synod's website and learn about that, but I've been involved in that conversation. Especially when you live in rural Iowa, partnerships are huge. You gotta have partnerships. It's not a dual parish, it's a partnership, and it's very unique, but I can talk about that later. This is a topic that is really important to me. Several years ago, I started to talk with different leaders in my community, teachers, principals, police officers, doctors, counselors, anybody who interacted with the public, with people. And I'd hear them talk about some of the issues they were experiencing. And I would say, well, if you had to pick 1 or 2 things that may be contributing to some of the issues you see, what was one thing you might say? And every single one of them consistently said, screens. And I said, well, we probably ought to start talking about that in the church. If it's having this big of an effect on our people, we need to get up to speed on this. And most of us probably feel like we got caught flat-footed on this topic. I know I felt that way. So what I want to share with you, this is not going to be a negative presentation. It's not like, here are all the reasons why screens are bad, because if you haven't noticed, I mean, right? I mean, so... I'm not here to say screens are bad, but I am going to tell you that there are some concerns that we should have about them, and we should be very sober about that. And I am going to try to get your attention, all right? So I want to get your attention because I'm going to try to change you. But I'll just be very upfront about that right now. I'm going to try to change you for your sake, for your children's sake, and for your church's sake, for your grandchildren's sake, for your community's sake. So you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. And, turn it on first, then it'll work. There we go. And do that. So you're going to hear this phrase a lot, the unpixelated three-dimensional life. Or if you want to just make it simple, you need to think in 3 dimensions, all right? This is really what we're driving after. It's one of the things I love about what you're doing here, because this is a 3-dimensional experience. And that's so important. I mean, we all could have just hopped on Zoom, right? No kidding. Most of you wouldn't. You wouldn't, and I wouldn't blame you, all right? One of the points I want to make is this. You were made for more than pixels. You were made for more than pixels. Okay? So that 2-dimensional pixelated life is an inherently disembodied life. Okay? It disembodies human interaction, and this will never be fully satisfying to humans. Right? It won't be. And in some ways, it shouldn't surprise us, because should you be able to expect good to come when you consistently live out of line with reality? No, okay? I like to say if Jesus were to modernize his parable about building a house on the sand, he would talk about building our house on pixels, all right? Now, I'm also going to suggest that the unpixelated 3-dimensional life is centered in the worship life of the church and the 3-dimensional gathering of hearing the word, receiving the sacraments, pulpit, font, altar. It's very much an embodied experience, all right? This is, I like to call the church the gathering of the gathered. The gathering of the gathered. And that will flow out into your family life. It'll flow out into your community life, into our embodied lives. One of the things I love about the church, and I want to just put this image up here. So one of the things I want you to conceptualize the church is like this. Some of you remember these little sliders you put on your bike when you were a kid, all right? So the church would be the hub of your life, and you are that slider. And you're going to slide in and out into your week and back into the church, out into the week and back into the church. And this is an embodied experience. And it's important for our ability to live in the 3-dimensional world. Because look, here's the thing about the church, which I love. There is nothing virtual about God's forgiveness and grace. It's not virtual. It's real. It's tangible. I mean, you can feel the water. You can hear the word. You can taste the grace. This is actually really cool, too. So, you know, kids ask all kinds of bizarre questions. And I'm going to ask a question that at first you're going to say to me, that's like a kid who asks, well, how much does the color green weigh? You're going to say, well, you go, you know. If I were to say to you, could you tell me what forgiveness tastes like? At first, you're going to say, that's like that question, how much does green weigh? And I'm going to say, no, it's not. You can say it tastes like bread and wine. What does forgiveness feel like? It feels like water. It feels like being washed. I mean, so in the church, you can actually tell people, I can tell you what forgiveness tastes like. I can tell you what it sounds like. I forgive you all your sins in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I can tell you what it feels like. It feels like water. It feels like being washed. That's a 3-dimensional experience, right? That's something happening in 3 dimensions. So very important, okay? And then also, what I want you to do is to think about with the church is to make it the thing around which everything else must move. You all have these things in your life. You all have the things that you will adjust everything else for. You're already doing this. Everybody does this. It's just the way we live our life. Here's my question, though. To what of those things has Jesus attached a promise of unmovability? Has he attached that promise to your children? You should love your children, but they're movable. Has he attached that promise to any of your relationships? No. Has he attached that promise to your job? No. Has he attached that promise to your house? Because here's the thing. Someday somebody else is going to sit in your living room and watch that TV in that room. Maybe not your TV, but a TV in your room. Somebody else is going to be sitting there, right? What has Jesus attached a promise to when he said, it won't move? The church. So wouldn't it make sense to build your life around the one thing that Jesus has attached a promise to, that it won't move? Because if you build it around anything else that will move, and it will, if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, or read the book of Job, read the book of Proverbs, the wisdom literature, it will tell you, hey, it's going to move. All right? So, yes, celebrate those things. They're important. But it should not be the hub. It doesn't have the promise. All right? So important. Lots more I could say about worship, and we'll come back to this a little bit at the end, and the power of worship. And we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow in the couple sessions on cultivating what I'm going to call the Christian identity. Christian, but I want you to hear that word Christ. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay, and I want to talk about, I want to share with you a quote from a dear friend of mine. This is Pastor Andrew Johnson. He was my partner pastor. If you can see in the back, I know it's hard to see. Can someone tell me what today's date is?
3rd or 4th?
April 4th. He died 2 years ago today. He was 32. He was just 32, not quite 33. He was a great man. He died of cancer. He was my partner pastor at the neighboring parish. He had a whimsical way of speaking and presenting. You couldn't help but love this man. And he reflects on the way his parents made the church the thing around everything else must move. Here's the way he put it. The greatest gift my parents gave to me was getting my lazy rear end out of bed in order to attend Sunday school and worship. Every week we went. And every week, whether I knew it or not, the hymns, liturgies, creeds, and Bible stories etched themselves into my soul. And then you'll see his whimsical side come out. It was as if I'd been bitten by a radioactive spider, and my superpower is to receive and comprehend God's truth. You like that, don't you? That's right up Pete's alley, right? I mean, yeah, I love the way he put that. But I want you to see this. It was the regularity, of the consistency. This was the thing that wasn't going to move in their life. And yep, as a kid, he probably wasn't the most grateful. But as a man, he was so grateful. So I encourage you, dads, get in church. My dad used to say, you go to church unless there's a funeral, preferably your own. Guess how many times I miss church? Not very often. Now let's talk about screens. When I'm talking about screens, really what I'm talking about here is what I'm going to call the individualized screens. We'll talk a little bit tomorrow about the communal screen. I'll call this a communal screen because we're all viewing it together, okay? So I'm more focused on the individualized screen for the next however long we go here. So you've all heard of Pavlov and his experiment with ringing the bell to make the dogs drool. I hate to tell you this. That phone is the bell. You are the dog. And Android and Apple, they've made $1 trillion ringing your bell and making you drool. They're really good at it, okay? And I could go into the more details about how they track everything you do online, everything, to the point of how long you linger over an image. And like, if you want to get deep into this, I mean, you can, like for example, back when COVID was all the rage, and everyone was all excited about that, it was fun to be a pastor. So much of life was virtual, which was not rewarding. But I could tell you that Facebook will give you its analytics and tell you how many people watch for 3 seconds, how many people watch for 10 seconds, how many people watch for 15, how many watch the whole time. You ever been suckered by a video that says, wait for the end? It's a psychological trick because they want their analytics to go up. All right, so, and there you have a digital profile. They know better what works on you than probably what you know works on you. Now, how do they do it? Well, one of the things they use is what's called the desire engine. You need some kind of clickbait to begin with. And we're all suckers for clickbait. We all think we're not. You are. You all have the thing that you're a sucker for. Every single one of you. I'm no different. The thing that I can't help it, I'm going to click on it because I want to see how that semi-truck ends up, upside down in the ditch. I can't help it. I want to know, right? Right? I mean, you're a sucker for it. Now, here's the thing. You start off with some clickbait, some trigger to get you to swipe, click, whatever. And then what's going to happen, so how are they going to, because if it was the same video every single time, eventually you'd get tired of it, right? So the variable reward is the thing that's going to keep you coming back. Let me use an image to help maybe make this make sense. If you have a refrigerator with an ice maker on the outside where you put the cup in there and you can get your ice and water and so forth, I doubt too many of you have had to do an intervention with someone who's addicted to that mechanism, right? Because it's the same thing. Well, you can get crushed or cubed, but it's the same thing every time, right? Now, what if every now and then it turned into a beer trailer? Now, every now and then, not every time, you don't know if it's the 3rd time or the 20th time, but every now and then, it's going to shoot out a stout or something, okay? Would that change the calculus a little bit? Yeah, or what if, and if let's put it for kid language, what if every now and then it shot out a root beer float? Okay, now it's the variable reward. Now, this is the thing that your app makers and your programmers, they know this, okay? So you're going to build in variable reward, and then you're going to get the people hooked. Then the way you keep them hooked is helping them to move that trigger inside, internal. And this is what happens with us. All it takes is the mere thought, you just got an email. You should probably check it, right? You haven't checked the score on that game for 30 seconds. It could have changed, right? So now this is moving it internal. And it moves you to go back and see if the thing has changed. It's the variable reward. And that keeps you going back and going back and going back. That's on purpose. The infinite scroll. Okay, here's what Facebook, Instagram, these places, they're so good at. They take away the stopping cues. Okay, so let me just put it this way. If I were to say to you, get your phone out, pull out Facebook or Instagram, scroll to the bottom. Well, you all laughed. Why is that? There's no bottom. There is no bottom. Do you think that's accidental? You should be shaking your head no. Of course that's not accidental. They don't want there to be a bottom, because a bottom is a stopping cue. Like in a book, if you read up these things called books, they're made of paper. They have there's like a hard part and a hardened back part, and they open up, and there are words inside. But there are stopping cues in books. They're called chapters, right? There are stopping cues in the traditional kind of television program when the credits come on at the end. Now, if you remove all those things and just keep the stream coming, it's really hard to break away from it. But at that point, when the credits come up, you have an option to watch the next show or to turn it off. But there's a stopping cue. They've taken away the stopping cue, and that is absolutely on purpose, all right? And it is because we are not satisfied with incompletion. So, for example, how many of you in the summertime, now, I know there are lots of whatabouts or the exceptions to this, but let's say you have enough time to mow your whole lawn. I know there are times you only get half of it done. But let's say you have enough time. How many of you ever mow half the lawn and say, that's good enough? Does anyone find that satisfying? Just arbitrarily, just to quit halfway. That's good enough. I'm satisfied with that. Probably not. It would mess with your neighbors. I know it would. All right. All right. But also tell me this. When you do complete it, before you put that mower away, what are most of you going to do one last time before you walk inside? You're going to turn around and do what? You're going to look at it, aren't you? Why do you do that? It's complete, right? I have accomplished this, it's complete. And you might even say something like this. Hey, that's good. You might even say, that's very good. And then you might have this little moment, you're like, I know how God felt. When he finished his creation, he said, well, that's what God does, isn't it? Why do you think you got to day 7? Right? God stopped and he said, hey, look at that. That's good. Where did you think you got that desire? Where did you think you got that desire to complete things? You're not seeing people walking around doing it halfway on purpose. You want to complete it. So here we have a thing where you can never complete it, ever. Right? Ever. The same thing with games, digital games. You never actually win the game. You can advance levels, you can get the higher degrees and everything else, but you don't actually ever win the game. I mean, I guess there's occasions where you could, but most of the time you don't, because they want you to keep coming back, because they know you're not satisfied with incompletion. Right? Okay. We're going to come back to the gaming thing in just a minute. I want to talk a little more about that. But first, I do want to cue you into just the language, okay? This is all about engagement. Clicks, shares, reposts, that sort of thing. Here's why that's important, because engagement means eyeballs. Do you know what you can do with eyeballs? You monetize eyeballs, okay? You monetize them. This is why engagement is so important. But I want you to understand then, when engagement is the goal, you are not viewed as a person. What do we call people who use the internet? Users. Drug dealers know that the more addictive their drug is, the more promising their drug is, the more powerful the addiction, and the easier it is to manipulate their users, like you. Samuel James writes the book Digital Liturgies. Highly recommend the book. I mean, he's very thoughtful, right, from an explicitly Christian perspective. He's given a lot of deep thought to this. Digital liturgies. He says, the social internet is designed for one purpose: to keep us scrolling, keep us posting, keep us hooked. Negative emotions, feelings of anger, frustration, or discouragement are to social media scrolling what coal is to a steam locomotive. All right? It's also been called an attention economy. There's another book I'll recommend, which I have deeply appreciated, and one that's been challenging to me, because it's a book that is not a book you read and put down. It's a book that aims after your habits. And you're going to hear me talk about habits a lot. Because guys, I'll tell you, this is where the battle's won and lost. It's your habits. And I don't know if I have good news or bad news, but it's the truth. You are your habits. You're not who you think you are. You're your habits. So Justin Earley writes the book, The Common Rule, Habits of Purpose for an Age of Distraction. And I'll return to him a few times. He says, attention is our precious commodity. Our life is defined by what we pay attention to. Our phones are carefully designed to attract our attention and to sell it to advertisers. And what you need to know, Tristan Harris, he runs an organization that's focused on ethical tech, but he came out of the tech world. YouTube has a supercomputer pointed at your brain. Oh, they do. They're driven by algorithms. And most of you probably know what algorithms are, but they're basically the program that tells the They're the code that tells the program what to do, okay? And these algorithms, I mean, you do know, if you search for something here in Seymour, Indiana area, and you search for it in Sacramento, and you search for it in New York City, you're gonna get something completely different. Not just like, where's a good place to eat? But if you search for, who is God? You're gonna get different answers based on where you are, because the algorithms will feed that to you. And the algorithms are very good at knowing also what you want to see and what will anger you, because that's what keeps you engaged. So this is true with content on YouTube and other sites like this. And I'll have information on this later, but the Wall Street Journal's done a lot of work on this, with setting up fake accounts by bots and seeing what the algorithms feed them based upon the profile of the person who is signing up. Let's just say it gets more extreme. The content that you are fed gets more extreme. So you think you're searching the internet. It's searching you. You do realize that anytime that something is free, guess who the product is? Guess what's being sold? You. I'm not saying this is an evil thing. I'm saying, and this is why I love that theme verse from Proverbs about wisdom. That's why, the theme is kind of wise up. I'm using that in the terms of biblical wisdom, okay? Bringing wisdom to bear. I will tell you guys, the wisdom literature of Scripture is stuff we've overlooked, and we need to give that more intentional thought. Because you saw what it said about seeking wisdom like you would seek for hidden treasure. And we're all like, oh, that's interesting. Let me ask you a question. If you bought a property, and then like a year later, you got credible intel that there was buried treasure worth about $3 million on your property, you wouldn't go buy a metal detector? You would just be like, oh, that's interesting. Whatever. Wouldn't you develop some sort of systematic way where you'd search every square foot of your property until you found it? That's what the scriptures are saying about biblical wisdom. You got to seek it like that. You don't get it overnight. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow, about the habits that we need to develop to attain that wisdom. So my goal for you is to help set trajectories for your life. I don't think you're going to walk away after this event and go like, I have this big epiphany and I'm a totally changed man. Good if you are, that's wonderful. I'm more interested in the long-term trajectory that in 10 years, if you stay on it, you know something then that you wouldn't have known otherwise. You're in a much better place wisdom-wise. Now, I want to talk about gaming. I don't know if you can see this from the back, so I'll read this to you. We were in Hobby Lobby a while back, and I just thought, I was so disturbed by the gaming signs that I took a picture of it. I'm going to read these to you. Top left says, "You talking to me?" Because the headphones on, you can't hear. This one says, "I have a dream that one day my parents will understand that online games can't be paused." "I don't quit, I restart." The next one is depressing to me. "I like to party, and by party I mean stay inside and play video games." That's very depressing to me. "Just 5 more minutes." The bottom right one says, "Warning, may yell at video games." And the middle one says, "Gamer, noun, a person who realized that real life is too boring." I just want to ask you a question, guys. Is that what you want? I don't want you to deceive yourself. For anybody in this room, we're all susceptible to it. But I want you to understand, little gamers become big gamers. I just want to ask you, do you want to fund this? Do you want to enable this? Now, I want to point something out. So, speaking in generalities, online gaming tends to appeal more to boys, and the social media world, like Instagram and so forth, tends to appeal more to girls. Those are generalities. One of the reasons that I think the online gaming world appeals to boys, beyond simply the dopamine hit that they're getting. Think about masculinity and how it's treated in our culture today. Now, I think we're seeing a pushback in a big part of our culture. But by and large, one of the phrases that's been embraced by our culture is called toxic masculinity. Okay? And, actually, when you had Hemmer here and talked about man up, that probably was very helpful. He spoke into this. I think that would be very good. But here's the thing. Men have certain desires to conquer, to defend, to protect, to accomplish, to do, to achieve. And I bet if I use words like courage to you, I bet that hits you someplace, doesn't it? If I use a word like sacrifice, that hits you someplace, doesn't it? If I use a word like honor, that hits you someplace, doesn't it? And in a large part of our culture, you're not allowed to be moved by that. The online gaming world allows men, and our young men, our boys, to achieve, to conquer, to accomplish, to defeat the enemy, to do the things that men want to do. It's not always about the killing on these games. Yes, there's a lot of killing, and you can talk about whether that's a good thing or not. But the point is, it's the conquering. It's the manly desire to achieve and to do, which they are being crushed in our world, told that they shouldn't be a man. They're being shamed for wanting to be that kind of man, but they can do that online. So I just want to understand, one of the things that drives that is actually a good desire. Now, the problem is that we weren't made for pixels. So if we were going to live in 2 dimensions, this could translate into something very useful. But when it's lived there, it actually it hinders us from living in the 3 dimensions where we need to live. And I also want to point out, just statistically, young people will spend on an average of 10,000 hours playing video games before they turn 21. It takes about 4,800 hours to get a bachelor's degree. So my point here is just the opportunity cost. What we're giving our life to, what we're neglecting. Like, what isn't being done? What volunteering? What skills? What instruments? What wisdom? What things aren't being gained? All right? Now, I also will tell you, and I won't go into details, I mentioned content. So I know people like to lead in with, it's all the content that's so bad. Look, there's plenty of bad content. That's not my first concern, but there is plenty of bad content. You need to know it. These games have a lot of explicit sexual things. Just explicit and violent. And if you think it's just some innocent game, you probably ought to do your research. These things are not always innocent, and you should be concerned. Now, I'm going to speak about the brain for a minute, especially with our young people. You can see up there synaptic pruning. I'm going to tell you some statistics about the brain which are phenomenal, first of all. A baby is born with 100 billion neurons. Okay, these have to be connected in networks, which the brain starts working on right away. And these connections will peak between the ages 2 and 3, get this, at nearly 15,000 neural connections between every neuron. I can't do math that big, okay? That gives the young child's brain this astonishing wealth of power and potential for learning. Now, the young brain will gradually become more orderly and efficient and fine-tuned as it matures. So, some facts of life here. Women's brains will mature somewhere in their early 20s. Men, we're not closer till 30 before our brains are mature. All right? Just be aware of that. What the brain does is it prunes the neurons that are not being used. And then it myelinates, or you can think of like an insulating sheath. It'll build around the ones that are, and this will allow the brain to be more efficient. And this is critical for the brain's ability to develop higher level cognitive skills like problem solving and executive function and emotional regulation, these sorts of things. And this is really a use it or lose it scenario. And it's happening in real time in our young people's brains. But here's the problem. Social media and gaming, these are designed to be brain dead easy, all right? They do not require higher level cognitive skills. So guess what's happening in our young people's brains? The neural pathways that are responsible for the real world problem solving, like executive function, emotional regulation, these things, they're being pruned, literally cut off. You may not like to hear it, but these things are changing our young people's brains. Now, the brain is described as plastic in that it is able to regrow these things, these areas. So it's not a total permanent forever loss, but it does make it a lot harder. And there have been lots of studies on this. I refer often to the prefrontal cortex because this is the area of the brain that needs to develop. This is like your discernment center. And these are also like the brakes in your sports car. Now you think back when you were 13, 14, 15, 16. Well, you told the story about your brother at age 13. He didn't have brakes. And that's not an insult to him. He really didn't. The prefrontal cortex, not working. This is how you as an adult say, that's probably not a good idea, right? Right? Where you as a kid thought, this will be great, right? Okay, I have a lot of conversations with my kids, and I say, the reason why I get to make all the decisions in this house is because I'm the only one here with a fully developed prefrontal cortex. All right? I talked to my son one time about why we don't have phones in the bedroom at night. We don't have screens in the bedroom at night. That is not allowed. And I went through this whole thing about synaptic pruning. I totally geeked out on it. Like, I'll tell you what's going to happen in your brain. Here's what's going on in your brain. You are not having this in your bedroom because I don't want those parts of your brain to be pruned off. And I explained it all to him. When I finished, he said, Dad, I think you're a psycho dad. And then he said, but in a good way. I said, that's good enough for me. So I want you to understand these things do break the brakes, all right? They do. I also want to add, and that's just a side comment here, keep these things away from babies. Keep the screens away from babies, because here's what's happened in our culture. The iPad has become the new pacifier, all right? There's a woman named Marianne Wolf. She writes the book called Read or Come Home. She says this, many young viewers are all too quickly, are literally and cognitively left to their own devices to be continuously entertained by a very flat thing which possesses neither the lap nor the voice of their most beloved persons reading and speaking just to them. So I could go into more details on that, but I'm going to keep skimming on. Another book I highly recommend, he's written an updated version of it called The Collapse of Parenting. Truly, truly a phenomenal book on parenting, on helping us understand what we're supposed to be doing and what relationships we need to be prioritizing. The parent-child relationship over the peer-peer relationship. Peer-peer relationships are important, but here's the problem with children. Did you know that immaturity is rampant among the youth? I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it's also serious. And the problem with turning kids over to let other kids raise them, nobody's got to develop prefrontal cortex. And the relationship that they need prioritized, and here's what I'm going to get after, is you, parents. Here's why. You are the floor that they are going to put their feet on every morning, that they ought to be able to depend upon, they ought to be able to assume when their feet hit the floor, when they get out of bed, it's you they're walking on. The reason why is they don't have that guarantee in their friends. Friends, peers, that relationship is finicky. Today they're good friends, the next day she says something that was really mean, they're on the outs. The next day he's cheated with his girlfriend, and now they're upset, or he cheated on the football field and I don't like him. Those relationships are finicky. When you throw social media into the mix, it just escalates how unstable those relationships are. You got to be the relationship, you're the floor. All right, so that's why that relationship has to be rock solid. Yep, that means you're going to get walked on. I just want to say, get ready to be walked on. They need that. There has to be a relationship that they can count on. It needs to be you. Now, let's talk about how these screens are affecting us. One of the things it's doing is it fractures families. And here's how. This is a communal screen. You can all go away from here and talk about the thing you saw together. But if you all took out your phones for the next 10 minutes, we individually scrolled our stupid videos, what kind of shared experience have you had? None. Okay, so in families, you develop familex, family dialects, inside jokes, things that only make sense to your family, right? Right? I mean, so which one of Dave was talking about, or one of the Vanderkar brothers talking about the men's rendezvous, because that meant something to that family, right? But it didn't mean the same thing on a wider circle, and it needed to be changed. But my point is, you all have these. And these things are things to celebrate in your family groups, familect. But individualized screens will destroy that. According to one doctor doing some research on this, that screen time will reduce talk time between parents and children by 85%. That's terrible. Justin Earley writes in The Common Rule, we don't mean to live lives of absence, but without meaningful habits of resistance, smartphones are impossible not to look at. If we do nothing, we're sure to live a life of fractured presence. Fractured presence. This is the type of presence you have with your wife when you're trying to watch the football game on TV and she wants to talk about your plans for that next weekend. That's fractured presence. I'm not saying don't watch the game, but I am saying have an agreement between husband and wife that we're not going to talk about important plans while I'm watching the game, okay? But fractured presence. How many times have you been on the phone or your son or daughter on the phone? They're not listening. It's fractured presence. And you do that enough with your kids, they'll stop talking to you. What's the point of trying? They're not listening to me. Okay? The smartphone has to be governed or it will govern you. They're good at what they do. You have to govern it. A smartphone distorts reality. This happens, this is especially if you got wives and if they're ever online, this is where mom guilt gets like totally blown out of proportion because she will see everybody else's perfect family. You know, when they've taken 500 shots and picked the perfect edited one, they've put it online, and she's seen 25 perfect families on there, and guess who doesn't have the perfect family? You. Guess who? Everyone else went on these amazing vacations, did all these wonderful things, and their kids got all these wonderful awards. Your family didn't, so she must be a failure. It's totally distorted reality. It is stitching together these little snippets that have been highly edited and making it into this like video reel in your brain, which doesn't exist anywhere. Okay, so it distorts reality. If you do like reading, I mentioned these books. Amusing Ourselves to Death is by Neil Postman. That really was seminal in grasping some of the impacts of the visual medium. So this was in the 90s before the internet. Samuel James writes Digital Liturgies, which is kind of a building on Postman, but from an explicitly Christian perspective. These are very, very thoughtful books. But let me quote Samuel James for just a minute. He says, rather than being a neutral tool, the internet, particularly the social internet, okay, big word alert, I'll define it, is an epistemological environment. Epistemological has to do with the way we know things. It affects the way we process the world. A spiritual and intellectual habitat that creates in its members particular ways of thinking, feeling, and believing. He goes on, the disembodied, fragmented nature of the internet is not merely a quirk, but a fundamental part of the web's nature and thus part of the story it tells. The digital liturgies, and he uses that word on purpose, of the web and social media train us to invest ultimate authority in our own stories and experiences as they separate us from the objective givenness of the embodied world. Okay, so I'll stop there, but no, I want to add this. He says the habitat itself, so the habitat of the digital world, is a story that humans are not essentially people with flesh and blood, voices and facial expressions, but users whom we can sufficiently know from their words, profile pictures, and shares. So it's very disembodied. I'm going to skim over a couple things, but I can go into more detail if anybody has questions. Here's what I want you to see about the visual medium. So this top left picture is a picture by, it's a Vermeer called The Girl with the Pearl Earrings. Now, I'll tell you about the bottom right one in just a second. But if I asked you to look at that painting and I said, is that painting true? Would you struggle to answer my question? Would you want to ask me, what do you mean by that? Right? Because I'm not asking, do you like it? And I'm not asking, is it a genuine Vermeer? But if I say, is it true, right away you're struggling to know how to respond to that. Here's why. Because the visual medium doesn't live in the same realm as truth claims or worded truth claims. Right? So if I were to write a statement out, today is Friday, and say, is that true? You could say, yeah, I can answer that one because that lives in the world of true and false. Images don't live in the world of true and false. Now that should concern you. Not that it's bad. Images are not bad, but you need to be aware that images and music is like this. So here's a good thought experiment to do at home sometime, but you gotta be brave enough to do it. You need to go find your favorite pop song from your childhood era. I mean, maybe from today, whatever. Most of us have that 10-year period when we were young and we loved our pop songs, right? So you can go online and find it. Find its lyrics. Get rid of the music and take it to the supper table and read it out loud to the whole family. Interesting. I get the same response every place I go. People are like, I'm not doing that. Why? Why? Because you understand something. Okay, because here's the thing. Music and images function like this. Another image. Let's think of music and images like a fancy sports car that just pulled up on your driveway with dark tinted windows, and whoever's in that car wants to take your daughter on a drive. Do you have any questions before you say, sure, honey, you go ahead? What do you want to know about who's in the car? Don't you want to know who it is? Who's driving? Okay, so music and images, they carry a worldview. And you need to know what his name is. Right? So my point is, one of the ways that we get suckered into believing things that aren't true is because we're not used to thinking in terms of true and false with music and images. It changes the way we tell truth, is what I'm getting after. It changes the way we tell truth. It comes in through a different door. We're trained to act. So basically, I could say to you, do you like that picture? You could answer that question. All right? So this is just a still image, but what I'm really getting after here is like your video reels. Okay, a moving image is telling a story. It's making truth claims, but we are trained to like or dislike, not to realize that there's a driver in that sports car and we didn't know who it is. Now, by the way, that image there was made by AI. Now, this just, by the way, this is just for fun, but so you can see the Pope there with the puffer jacket, and you can see Abraham Lincoln checking his texts. You ought to think about that one for a minute. And you can see Elvis Presley playing basketball. Now, if you're paying attention, Elvis Presley has about 30 fingers because AI is still working on getting all that right. Those are all fake. And that one I found online, but those two I did. It's really easy to do. You just got to use the right tool. My point is, it's getting harder and harder to know what's true. Because the AI can do this not only with still images, but they can actually, if you have your any kind of video of you online, even a short one, they can totally reproduce that and make you say whatever they want. And now we have, and I'll just offer this just as a side note, the AI chatbots. You need to know these chatbots, they're being offered as a substitute for friends, and a lot of them are highly sexualized. Highly sexualized. So anyone in the room who struggles with porn, this is porn on heroin. It's completely manipulative. It will do whatever you ask it, and it looks real. Exceedingly addictive. Exceedingly addictive. We need to be mindful of this. I'm going to be talking about some strategies in a minute here for what we need to be focusing on, but you probably can already understand why I'm so big on 3 dimensions and governing the 2-dimensional world, because if you do not govern it, it will govern you. So, how are these screens affecting us? This is for our theologians in the room. There's a little bit of humor, only for geeks like me and other theologians. Incurvatus in se means we are curved inward on ourselves. This is our sinful condition. But now, literally, I've talked to medical professionals. They have now a literal curving of the spine that is becoming a health issue from excessive screen viewing. It is literally turning our spines. Here's the short of it. As screen time goes up, every measure of human happiness and well-being goes down. Okay? Jean Twenge writes a lot about this in her books. She says there is a sharp and impossible to miss correlation between the rise of the self-reported mental health crises among teens and young adults and the availability and use of smartphone technology. Now, for the sake of time, I've taken out all the graphs and so forth in here, but if you want the graphs, I mean, this is a 3-hour presentation. I'm doing my best to cram into as close to I can to an hour, but I know I'm not going to hit it. The online medium is basically destroying our ability to imagine. So, just share, try to keep this, to not share every quote, but share one of them. Marianne Wolf writes this. She says, rather than play in a world constructed by their own minds, worlds in which they are cops and robbers, doctors and patients, princesses and aliens, she's talking about kids, and whatever they'd like to be, kids today play mostly in worlds created by others in the form of video games or other media content. Make-believe is a mentally rigorous exercise that helps a child develop critical thought and creativity, but kids are systematically replacing this important form of play with games created by the minds of others. We are robbing our kids from the ability to imagine. Look, here's the thing, and I'll point this out. If you try a tech fast or some sort of governing of the tech in your life where you actually can free yourself from its tractor beams long enough to get bored, which is like the worst thing in our culture imaginable. The thought of being bored is like the worst thing. But if you did that long enough to experience boredom, then you would experience this moment where you had a thought. Like your very own thought. And you would be shocked where that thought might take you with creativity and learning. But you have to be willing to get bored long enough to have that moment. And our kids today are scared to death of that. And many of us are scared to death of that because we are scared of what we might think. And some of that can be painful because if you sometimes have things you're thinking about that are difficult, it can be painful. But to have your own thought and learn how to use your imagination, man, the stuff you guys can do. I watched what some of you guys have built this weekend, and that hog roaster, that's fantastic. What you built here, This doesn't happen from spending your life on screens, right? You had to have a vision about this. You had to have your own thoughts. You got to be free from this stuff to be able to do that. In the name of time, I'm going to move past this, but Justin Early writes about this in The Common Rule. Screens actually teach us to view the world basically through the lens of our phone. Everything has to be set up for the perfect shot or the perfect selfie or how I'm going to frame it and how I'm going to adapt it or modify it to make it even, like, enhance it. So everything is viewed through the lens of my rectangle. It teaches us to process the world through a rectangle instead of being able to see it in its full 3 dimensions. I mentioned this. 4 out of the top 20 searched websites today in the world are porn sites. That's a big number. And here's the thing about porn. It's not just that people are searching for porn, it's porn is searching for you. The algorithms attach these things to innocent searches. And here's the thing about the human nature. Most of us will look a second time. It's just like you can't look away from a train wreck. You can't, okay? So I'm not criticizing anybody for having that struggle because we all are drawn to it. And basically what I'm saying, it's not even fair. It's not fair. But we need to be aware of this. We also need to be aware how this has changed dating. Look, if you talk to young people, they will tell you their friends are asking for nudes and sending them. This is common. When some of you were young, the thing you were hoping for was to kiss her. They want nudes. And they ask for them. It's changed dating a lot. The porn culture has changed expectations of dating too. What they have to look like, act like, sound like. And you can't unsee something. So without spending a whole hour on this, one of the strategies we need to do when it comes to porn, and there are good resources available, but one of the strategies I'd like to talk about is this. If you think of sin like an expressway, expressways have on-ramps. You need to be mature enough to identify what your on-ramp is. It's different for you guys, but you've all got them. Maybe it's porn, maybe it's not, maybe it's something else. You've all got your on-ramps. You got to be mature enough to rip those up, and you're going to have to build a different highway. We'll talk about that tomorrow on some of those highways we're going to build. But if you think about sin as an expressway, you got to know what your on-ramps are. You need to rip them up, and the key is you got to build something else. We'll talk about the building something else tomorrow. Let me talk about this. What should we do? Well, obviously we got to do it some limits on our screens. We have to, all right? Samuel James writes, pixels are not created in God's image, people are. It is a holy thing to be with another human being. Okay, this is huge. I think the research is spot on when it says, really, smartphones don't belong in the hands of kids 15, 16, really? I will offer one option that I think is doable here in a minute. And I think social media, I just don't know if people who don't have developed prefrontal cortexes need to be on that until they're in their late teens at the earliest, until you've had enough time to teach them wisdom. But when they're young, they don't have it. Some of us still struggle with it. You can fight the games you want to fight. I think online gaming is a black hole. It's not evil. It's also not neutral. Okay? So we need to be mindful of what we're doing and further what kind of trajectory we're setting. What type of time are we investing into this? What will be the end result? All right? No phones in bedrooms. No tablets in bedrooms. Kids do not need them there. It will interrupt their sleep all night long. They'll get bings and buzzes and beeps all night long. They do not need to be on that. They're afraid, though. The reason why they want it is because I mentioned earlier that peer-peer relationships are unstable. And if they miss a text or miss a post or something, they're in danger of being out of the friend circle. That's why they want it. But you need to fight for their sleep, all right? And that's that sacred space. Because remember, phones are not just portals to the world, they're portals from the world to your kid and to you. Anybody can access them. You need to be mindful of that. Okay, a couple things. And I'll talk more about this tomorrow when it comes to phones. Maybe I should just save it till tomorrow. But if I don't, I'm going to say it now and remind me. I call it word before world. Word before world, which has to do with our phone, and the regular return. Okay, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But it has to do with how we're going to learn to meditate on God's word. Now, okay. I mentioned limiting our screens. One insight about limits is this. This is actually where freedom is found. We have a preschool at my church. We have a fence around the outside play yard. Why do we do that? What are we protecting? The kids, but why? Think about it. Inside that fence, they're free, aren't they? But if we take that fence down, have I freed them or endangered them? Endangered them, right? So we need to learn how to put limits on things so that we find the freedom to enjoy them properly. Let me offer this. Another excellent book, Atomic Habits. This is all about setting trajectory for your life and really setting your life after something as opposed to setting these unrealistic goals and like feeling crushed because you didn't hit it. This is more about setting a trajectory and changing your life by 1% or 2% and doing it over the long haul and discovering wisdom and the true life change from it that comes. James Clear, who writes this book, says, your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. So if you want to predict where you're going to end up in life, all you have to do is follow the curve of tiny gains or tiny losses and see how your daily choices will compound 10 or 20 years down the line. Okay? So here's what it means. You're not your intentions. You are your habits. You are what you scroll. Hard to hear, I know. But, okay. Another book to recommend. And we're going to get into this idea of you being a liturgical creature tomorrow. So we'll focus more on that then when it comes to how worship restories us and re-narrates us. I mentioned this book, The Common Rule. You can't believe truth without practicing truth, and vice versa. Remember the Great Commission? Baptize, and then Jesus says, teach. But notice what he says. Does he say, teach what I commanded? No. Teach to observe or to keep or to do what I've commanded. You can't believe truth without practicing it, and vice versa. Now, let me talk about some action steps. I mentioned two phones that are available for your teenagers who are younger. So my daughter, who will be 15 in a little under a month, she has the pinwheel phone. It is a smartphone, but it has no internet browser and allows no social media. None. It has a parent portal that every person who's going to text my daughter, I have to approve. And every text thread that she's having is copied on my phone. You say, well, that's awfully controlling. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It's not that I don't trust my daughter. But in some ways, I don't trust my daughter. I love her. But I'm not called to trust a 14-year-old. She's called to trust me. That's the way trust works in a parent-child relationship. And I don't trust the world. I have a 14-year-old daughter. All right? So this allows us to communicate with her when she needs to be picked up or something. Right? You can put the Life 360 on there so you can see where they are, but there's no social media, and any app that she wants on there, there's a a suite of apps that Pinwheel allows, but I have to approve them. Everything has to be approved, and I know everything is on her phone. She knows that, and she's cool with it because I've explained to her why that is. All right? And Gab is another one who does something similar with that. Now, you will have to pay an extra fee per month to have their program on that phone so that they run it. You buy the phone from them. It'll cost you more. You put it on your phone plan, so her phone's on Verizon with ours. You'll pay more for it. It'll be clunkier. It'll be inconvenient, and that's exactly what you want. Because the reason why we have lost so much of the battle with these smartphones is because they're so dang easy, and you can't stop any of it. They move way faster than you. The things that are available, you may say you can't have that app. She'll find one just like it, right? You won't be able to stay ahead of it. So this is one option that we found helpful. I want to speak to you also about this. I want you to reconsider your living space. We'll talk a little more about this tomorrow. But most of us, when you walk into our living space, usually the thing that's in the center, that's getting all the attention, that is like the high place in our family house, is the TV. Now I'm going to tell you, to tell you how weird I am. Our TV has been in our attic for the last 10 years. We're not going up into the attic to watch it. It's just been up there. We've been too busy to watch it because we're playing games together. We're talking. We're doing things as a family. They're practicing their instruments. We're taking family walks. We're doing things together. Now, we are not completely image deprived. We have a big pull-down screen in our kitchen, and we have a program that if we want to watch it, we will put up the projector and attach the laptop, and we will choose to watch it. But it will not be the default in our house. It will not be the easy. It will take work. So yes, my kids love Dude Perfect, right? If you don't know what Dude Perfect is, it's a YouTube group that does all kinds of trick shots and so forth. Wonderful fun. We also subscribe to World Watch, which is a daily 10-minute, the world and everything in it, I should say. It's a daily 10-minute news program made for families with kids. So you can have your kids watch the news with you without worrying about what they're going to see. And you got to subscribe to that. We watch that every day. So I'm not saying don't have a screen. But I am saying you need to give serious thought to what's in your living space and how you've arranged it, because what do you want to prioritize? What kind of interactions do you want in your house? And if you've got a TV, I'm not demonizing it, but you need to think, is that thing the default? It can be an okay thing, like if it's a communal thing we're going to choose to do, but if it's just your default, you probably need to think about that. I would unplug it, I'd put a wall hanging in front of it, I'd do something to make it hard. I'd put the remote control on one side of the house and the batteries on the other side of the house. So you got to make it hard for you. It's because of all the easy things, we just default to it. I'm going to share this. Read aloud to your kids. I have a whole list of read alouds that I would recommend. And this is one of the greatest things for cognitive learning. And man, the language, the grammar, the vocab, the ways that they can learn from reading aloud, this is such a great thing. And not just mom. Dads can read aloud to their kids because you will read differently than mom will. You'll make voices that mom won't make. You'll crack jokes that mom won't do, right? You'll interact with the book in a whole different way. You'll be like, well, that was a dumb thing for him to do. Why would he do that? He ought to do it like this. You'll do it like a dad. That's exactly what your kids need and your grandkids need. They don't need two dads or two moms. They need a dad and a mom because you do it differently. You should read aloud to your kids. Marianne Wolf writes this. I am getting close, but if you have to stand up and stretch, go ahead. But I came all the way from Western Iowa. I'm not stopping now. Okay, so she says, when you speak to your children, you expose them to words that are all around that are all around them. So you're just talking to them. Wonderful thing, she says. When you read to your children, you expose them to words they never hear in other places and to sentences no one around them uses. This is not simply the vocabulary of books. It is the grammar of stories and books and the rhythm and alliteration of rhymes and limericks and lyrics that are not to be found anywhere else quite so delightfully. Read to your kids. Let me offer you this. Read the Bible to your kids. Now, let me very quickly lay this out for you. I call this a stackable way or scalable way of doing devotions, all right? Because not every night has a half hour. Some nights only have 3 minutes because you're home late from something, you're freaking tired, and you just want to go to bed. So what do you do if you only got 3 minutes? What do you do if you got half an hour? This is a scalable devotional plan. Here's what I call it. When you do your Bible reading, you're going to try to read maybe a whole chapter, maybe just a paragraph, okay? But you're going to read something. If you got a half an hour, that's what it looks like. You read a paragraph, you read the whole chapter, whatever book you're going through. Everybody then is going to share one thing. In other words, we read the chapter, everybody says, I heard this, I heard this, I heard. What's one thing you heard? Sometimes that will turn into a half-hour conversation. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes. But everybody knows they're going to share their one thing. They finish doing your one thing, you confess the Apostles' Creed. Then you share your highs and lows from the day. Everybody says, this was my high, this was my low. After that, you take turns. Who's going to be the child prayer? That child prays. Dad prays. Dad prays. Lord's Prayer. Speak the Lord's blessing. We're done. And then bedtime. Here's what this looks like. So if you don't have time to do all of that, and you only have 3 minutes, you're going to bless your kids before bed every night. And it's going to look like this. You're going to make the sign of the cross on their forehead, and you're going to speak a Bible verse over them, or you're going to say something as simple as this. Remember that Jesus died for your sins and rose for your life. Make it that simple if you want to. I have Bible verses I speak over my kids that are for them, but if you can't come up with one, just say that. Now, here's what I want you to understand. If you do that every night for the next 10 years or 5 years, however long they're going to be in your house, if they hear that thousands of times, do you think that's going to make an impact on them? You better be shaking your head yes. How long does it take to speak that blessing over your kids? I got 6. Now, one's off of college. But all 6 are at home. It takes me about 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes. This is something you do in 3 dimensions, and it makes a lasting impact on your kids. Bless your kids. Play family games. Have them out. Make them easy. Have games that take 5 minutes. Have games that take a half an hour. Because you will be shocked if you don't default to the TV how many times you'll turn to a game together. So important. Interact this way. Take family walks. You have a beautiful setting here. Wow. Take family walks. And I would definitely say eat together. Great quote from Jonathan Haidt, who writes The Anxious Generation, which I didn't even talk about yet, which is a whole other fantastic book. He says, perhaps the most important embodied activity that binds people together is eating. Then Justin Earley says, think through all the ways the values of love are communicated over food. We serve each other. We clean up after each other. We take turns. We share. We fight and forgive. We praise and compliment. We express gratitude. We tell stories and ask questions. We listen. We hear each other pray. All of this happens over food. Look, I was talking to Dave last night about putting that pig on that spit. Well, why didn't you just order shred it already and just stick it out like that and all that work you went through, right? Why do you think he did that?
It tastes good.
Yes, it tastes good. But why did he involve you in that whole process? Like those who were here last night, those who were here today watching him get it off the spit. Why? That's right. Something's happening in 3 dimensions that doesn't happen if you just order it from the grocery store. He knows that. That wasn't accidental, right? When you eat meals together, you're having conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have. And you're doing all of these interactions you wouldn't otherwise do. Eat together. I would really encourage you to learn instruments. That's going to take a lot longer to get after. My family, I never know if we're having a menagerie of melody or just a cacophony of sound. But we have 4 of them play the organ. We got trombone. We got 2 French horns. We got a oboe. And we got a trumpet and some piano. It gets noisy in my house. But I'll tell you, it's great for their brains. And I'm just going to end here. Make the church the hub of your life, the hub of your unpixelated 3-dimensional life, right? Because remember, there's nothing virtual about his forgiveness and grace. It's real, it's tangible. Like I said, you can tell people what forgiveness tastes like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. This is the thing that you want to build your life around because it's the thing that doesn't move. It's the thing that has this promise attached to it. This is this embodied experience that that He centers us in, and then He sends us out to live these embodied lives. Now, what I would like to offer is a couple things, and I'm sure I'm over time. I don't even know what time it is. But usually what I want to do is what I call your one thing. And what I like to take, and I'll let Dave, you're in charge. If you want to take another 5 minutes, I would love to be able to hear from you to say, this is my one thing, one takeaway. If we don't, then you can just come tell me in person. Do I have 5 minutes? Or you vote, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm not offended if you say, I want to get up, I'm tired of listening to you, right? Okay, now, this is the part I need to hear from you. Someone be brave enough to raise your hand and say, this is one thing I got. One thing. Please.
Don't spend enough quality time face-to-face with my daughter.
Face-to-face, absolutely. Yes, please.
Church be your hub.
Let it be the hub. Excellent. Thank you, please.
Non-Brigham.
That's okay. I'll come back. I saw it back there, please.
Condition of your wife when she goes back to God.
Oh, yeah, what Dave said. That's excellent. Very good. Yes, please.
Screens give us a fractured existence.
They fracture us, exactly, from each other. Absolutely. Excellent. Please, over here.
Share yourself.
Share yourself. Excellent, please.
Be intentional.
You got to be intentional. Absolutely. In the way back.
Habits. Be deliberate in your decisions.
Oh, habits. You're exactly right. Please.
Bless you over your children.
Bless your children. Yes.
We're not satisfied with incompletion.
Yes. Absolutely we're not, right? Yes, please. Someone else. You're doing great. Yes.
Getting bored is not a bad idea.
Yes. Thank you. That's on the other hand. Please.
Make the good things easy to access.
Yes. Make the things you want to be the things your family focuses on easy. Make the things you don't, make those things hard. Absolutely. Someone else. Please, in the way back.
Boredom is scary, but you just stay bored and there's a lot.
Yes. You will have a thought. It will happen. Yes.
The passage in Proverbs talks about seeking wisdom.
Yes.
Jesus has that message, seek ye first the kingdom of God.
Yes. With that kind of intensity, right? Absolutely. Yes, please.
Your phone is a portal to you.
Yes. From the world to you and to your children. Absolutely. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Video games rob boys of the tangible adventure.
Yes. Thank you for putting it that way. Well said. Yes. Yes, please.
The unfinished cubbies out in the garage is killing me.
Yes, it's unfinished, isn't it? Absolutely, yes. Very good. Please.
Facebook doesn't have a B side.
Yeah. You are right. There's no beach side for Facebook. You're exactly right. Excellent. I want to say thank you. I know I moved quickly. I have way more content than I ever have time to get through, and I probably need to cut this thing in half, but there's so much to talk about. So I'm certainly happy to have you come up and visit with me tonight, tomorrow. These are things that I'm passionate about, and would certainly welcome some follow-up conversation, because I know the nature of this is we've just scratched the surface. But I really wanted to get you thinking. And hopefully you'll do that with each other and with me. And so who do I give this microphone to? But thank you very much.